hope you had a chance to connect with some new faces. My name is Alyssa Peters. I am the chair of the WCREW Programs Committee and a commercial lender at Tri-City National Bank. I will be your MC for the evening of rapid speed presentations. First, a little bit on the format. Each presenter has 20 slides that will automatically advance after 20 seconds. This gives the speakers only 6 minutes and 40 seconds to tell their story. This year's theme is Pivot. This event would not be possible without the collaboration of WCREW, Women in Design, and the Women's Fund. I'm going to turn it over to Allie Kopit to introduce Women in Design.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's so nice to see you all again. My name is Allie Kopit. I'm one of the co-founders of Women in Design, coming to you from my new bedroom office. And I want to first thank all of you for coming out tonight. I know that this year has so far been a little strange, and we were not able to schedule our typical spring event. So thank you so much for coming to this time with us. This is our 11th event like this. Women in Design has been around for 6 years now, which is incredible to me. And it's really all because of all of you. So thank you so much. I also want to say thank you to WCREW and to the Women's Fund. We really enjoy these partnerships with you all for one of our events every year. And it's been a great collaboration to see all the different types of people coming together and hearing all of the stories that we do get to hear from the amazing women in Milwaukee. So with that, I guess I just want to quickly say that we will be having our December event. Our give back is usually what it is. We're still working on finalizing the details, so check our website, widmke.com. To find out more information, and you can also find us on Facebook at WID Milwaukee. So I'm going to turn it back over to Alyssa and enjoy the presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Michelle.
Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks everyone. Good to see you. I'm Michelle Rasich, and I am the president of WCREW in 2021. We are really excited to be part of this event, me specifically because I'm an architect and I feel like both my passions are coming together right now, so it's very exciting. So WCREW, our mission really is to advance women in commercial real estate, all women. That's really our goal, and we've been having a great year being able to really serve our members by providing webinars and crew huddles to get women together to really just kind of work through this whole transitional period that everyone's going through. So we've been able to pivot and had some really great events going on, this being one of them. So thank you to Alyssa for putting this together in the whole programs committee. If you're interested in WCREW, please let me know. We have a membership drive going on right now where if you join now, you're able to get 15 months of membership for only 12 months of payment. So that's kind of exciting for us right now. And Crew Network is actually a global network. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. But we're able to connect with women all over the world. And it's really exciting to kind of have that network to reach out to. So excited to see everyone and excited for the event. Thank you so much. Oh, and I'm supposed to thank, sorry, I'm supposed to say that we have two of our members are going to be speaking tonight, Lauren Goff and Marilyn Herzberg. So thank you to them.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much and good evening. So glad that so many people have made time in the evening to use their after 5 time for this green experience because it's my favorite. This is the 3rd year the Women's Fund of Greater Milwaukee has partnered with Women in Design and WCREW to organize this event. And I'm always excited about the stories and the information that people share. The Women's Fund is all about advancing equity for women, and we're particularly interested in shifting attitudes, behaviors, and culture so that women can realize their full potential and everyone thrives. And certainly this is an opportunity for women to present themselves with their own ideas and help craft influence the narrative in our community. So congratulations to to everybody, but especially the 3 people that said yes when I said, would you be in this event? Annette Jacobson, Starla Thompson, and Felisa Parris. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, just one second. I need to quickly readjust. Sorry. There we go. Okay, just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We recommend the easiest way for you to view the presentation and the speaker on Zoom is by clicking on View in the top right corner of the screen and selecting side-by-side speaker view. You can then slide the bar between the 2 views to adjust the size of the screen, whether you want the presentation bigger or the speaker bigger. The host will have all attendees muted during the presentation. However, when you do see the black screen at the end of the presentation, you will have the option to unmute and you can applaud at that time. You can also use the reactions buttons that are found at the bottom of the screen if you don't want to unmute. Okay, our first speaker is Patti Keating Kahn. Patti is a fixture in downtown Milwaukee as president of the PK2 Group, which owns, restores, and operates the historic Colby Abbott and the Railway Exchange buildings, Boynton Place livery known as the Colby Abbott Garage, and the My Office Tavern buildings in downtown Milwaukee. Patti earned a BA in psychology from UWM and an MBA from Cardinal Stritch University. She has over 30 years experience in non-traditional professional roles, from women starting an international trade for manufacturing, moving into executive and consulting positions in business development and strategic planning for architecture and construction industries, and subsequently as a hands-on investor in commercial real estate, specializing in historic restoration and preservation. Patti has received the Frank Kirkpatrick Award from the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, the Remarkable Milwaukee Award from Historic Milwaukee, Inc., the Women of the Year Award from Mount Mary University, the Women of Influence designation from the Milwaukee Business Journal, and the Renaissance Women Award from Renaissance Theater Works. Patti has always felt a strong obligation to make Milwaukee a better place to live, work, and play. She spends countless hours as a community volunteer, serving on dozens of nonprofit and professional boards and committees over the years. Currently, she enjoys her role as board chair for Milwaukee Film. In addition, she serves as the Renaissance Theater Works Board, the Downtown Bid, the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Milwaukee, and the Architectural Review Board for the Historic Third Ward. She is also a member of Professional Dimensions and past chair of the PD Charitable Fund. She is co-founder of 3 industry groups, the Wisconsin Green Building Alliance, Wisconsin chapters for SMPS, and the International Facilities Management Association. She has served as an instructor or lecturer at Cardinal Stritch, UWM's School of Architecture, and Marquette University. Her past volunteer experience includes Sojourner Family Peace Center and boards of the Milwaukee Art Museum Friends of Art, Girl Scouts of Southeast Wisconsin, Mount Mary College Women's Leadership Institute, and the ACLU of Wisconsin. Patti is married and has 2 highly accomplished daughters, 2 sons-in-laws, and 3 fabulous grandsons. Patti.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Thank you all for this opportunity to share my story with such an important group of women's organizations. All of us have had a year like no other, right? My 2020 story started with the idea that this was the year I would step back, not retire, but put a structure in place so that I could control my time pursuing new things that I'm interested in. Oh, but most of February in New Zealand and Australia, we returned in early March to COVID-19 hitting the US and Governor Evers issuing the safer at home order. The virus was really unsettling. We didn't have scientific understanding at that time. How could I keep my 55 small business tenants safe and healthy? In April and May, tenants and their employees in both buildings worked from home some of the time. Downtown was nearly abandoned. It was scary, but we kept thinking it would be over soon. How could things get worse? On Sunday, June 7th, my cell phone rang at 4:30 a.m. A voice on the line said, "I'm a police officer. Your building is engulfed in flames." I do not remember jumping into my car and racing downtown. We found a 7-alarm fire. It was devastating.
Patty, I'm going to pause you. We're not seeing the slides.
I'm not seeing them either.
One second. I'm not sure. I was seeing them.
Amy, are you available? The views aren't the same as what it was. Oh, there it goes.
My screen sharing must have stopped. Is that better?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Patty, I'll just go ahead and progress to the slide you left off on, okay?
Okay, technology. I love that, right?
A lot of fun.
Here we are in New Zealand, right? Here's the fire. 20 years of work preserving and restoring every inch of the building seemed to be gone. Luckily, I was wrong about that. The Colby Abbott building has been a landmark in Milwaukee since 1885. Over the years, it has undergone numerous alterations, but never a fire. The fire started in the middle in an upscale cocktail lounge, which sat in the light well of our U-shaped building. The cause was undetermined. The fire department broke down every corridor door to check that no people were inside. All 6 stories had serious smoke damage, but the building was saved. I mustered resilience with renewed toughness, strength, and spirit, and a lot of tears. My biggest goal was to minimize the impact on my tenants and their businesses. Floors 4, 5, and 6 were the least damaged, and most tenants kept on working. Floors 1, 2, and 3 were not habitable. I was surrounded, though, with a support system that boosted my morale. My husband has been at my side every day, as have my daughters and their husbands. Support also includes my great team and my contractors, Sid Grinker Restoration, Russ Laframboy Architecture, Pierce Engineering, Paul Rosenberg Elevators, Pieper Electric, Butters Vetting, and Steve Schwed, our remarkable insurance adjuster. During July, August, and September, we worked 12-hour days. Colby Abbott is not a cookie-cutter building. The old world craftsman details that were destroyed were either restored or replicated, including wood-coffered ceilings and decorative millwork. Cream City brick, including Cream City brick fireplaces, were restored. New windows were installed in all 6 stories of the light well. New air conditioning, revamped steam heat system, and a new electric service are all in the works. Some restrooms were gutted. We kept our nose to the grindstone and barely took a breath. We raced to get 2 first-floor tenants restored and back into business in those months. In February, we had started working with Wallpapered City to get Shepherd Ferry mural installed, a Shepherd Ferry mural installed in Milwaukee with a message on voting rights that was so critical for the DNC. In October, despite the fire, we had Shepherd Ferry, the world-renowned artist who did Barack Obama's Hope poster. He gave Milwaukee a wonderful gift. He and his team of Obey Giant from Los Angeles installed a mural on the north wall of the building with a message of diversity and inclusion to encourage all of us to vote. And the south building, the south facade of the building was where the fire was. Milwaukee's downtown is a neutral palette for this important, colorful public art meant to last for decades. I hope you'll all stop down and see it. I'm so proud to host its inclusive message. This beautiful art is a perfect alignment with my lifelong values. And that's Shepherd Ferry that you're seeing right now, right there. He was here on site.
What I'm trying to do in Milwaukee is remind people how important it is to assert their right to vote. The inspiration behind the art was an image of an anonymous marcher in the rain from one of the civil rights marches that I thought had a stoic determination that really was emblematic of the ongoing fight. It's important that I'm not the only voice in this piece. I feel very lucky that a lot of the artists whose work I liked were very open to being included in the mural to demonstrate the need for voting rights and racial and social justice. I hope that people will be reminded that their voice matters in shaping the future for themselves and for everyone else.
We hope the mural inspired some of you to get out and vote. So now it's November, and our second and third floor tenants have been moving back in after their spaces have been restored. Hooray! The 2021 plan includes a new roof garden on the Lightwell roof for outdoor space for tenants, new elevators, a modern facelift for our marble lobby, and many others. So that's the silver lining. Uh-oh, am I out? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I've got a different screen up now. Something happened in Zoom. So anyway, the first floor now has a clean palette, and we are reimagining it for new purposes. Where the cocktail lounge used to be will be a modified outdoor space with a completely openable front facade. It'll be like a new building. This experience has been really transformational, as you can imagine, and tough. This will be the finest historic preservation alteration ever at the Colby Abbott Building, bringing the best of historic character together with a host of modern features. I cannot wait until we can celebrate the grand reopening in person. Thank you for allowing me to share my 2020 story with you.
Thank you so much, Patti. Throughout technical difficulties, you did a great job. Everyone feel free to unmute yourself and applaud.
Good job, Patti.
Great job, Patti. Great job.
Good job.
Great job. There you go. Good job.
I cannot see any of you. I don't know if anybody else is having that same problem, but I can't see. There's no screen here. It's really weird.
I think you would have to change your view back to side-by-side gallery.
I don't even have that button.
Up top in the right where it has view.
Right. Nope, it's not there. It's a Zoom.
Maybe just log out and log back in, Patti.
Yeah.
Close that one. It just dropped.
Great job. Way to work out all the kinks.
2020.
Ah, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Our next presenter. Okay, our next presenter is Felisa Parris. Felisa is a thought leader, diversity and inclusion advocate, and sponsor. She seeks to collaborate with people, firms, and communities to help realize true potential. She is an international connector, driven and motivated by faith and hope, with skills and expertise in academic and business strategies, leadership development, and multicultural program development. Felisa has spent a decade of her career in higher education. She is the former Associate Director of Administration, Curriculum, and Evaluation at Marquette University. She is an accomplished academic leader who is proficient in advising, academic coaching, research, and teaching. Felisa's commitment and dedication to education is motivated by an interdisciplinary worldview coupled with her personal and professional values. Prior to serving in roles in higher education, Felisa worked as a business analyst in the banking industry. As a first-generation college student and the first in her family to pursue a doctorate degree, she is dedicated and determined to changing the educational lives of the marginalized and disenfranchised. Felisa is a recent graduate of the Yale University Women Leadership Program. Additionally, she serves on community and professional committees that are dedicated to supporting women. She is a proud member of the Women's Fund of Milwaukee. Felisa's experience and passion for teaching and mentoring has provided opportunities to teach courses in business education and leadership in undergraduate and graduate programs at Marquette University. She's a member of various leadership committees, community organizations, including the Institutional Research Review Board at Marquette University. As a global leader, presenter, and strategist, she's successfully competed in international business case competitions in London, England, Dublin, Ireland, and Montreal, Canada. In her time away from community and academic research, she enjoys family time, traveling, and fitness.
Well, hello. Welcome everyone to the Pandemic Pivot and the Pivot Pandemic. You can find yourself in either one. Here's my story, a bit interwoven with other women who may be experiencing the same thing. This is a time that we are pivoting through mandates, volunteer, or by choices. Women are seeking additional opportunities. Some by choice, as I said, some through layoffs. Did you hear me say layoffs? Furloughs and unemployment. So it's a sad time, another fire. We heard about the fire early, but this is a fire of a personal and professional lives being broken up by the pandemic. It is riveting. It is destroying lives because we don't all have the choice. Why is this? Well, as of January, women held more positions in the US workforce than men. They also had more college degrees, but what did that matter? All of these degrees and all of these things that are being reported, at the end of the day, women are pulling their loads and they're pulling a heavy load. I am that woman. Are you that woman? How is all of this changing us? How is it challenging us? How are we thinking? How are we supporting? How are we supporting our communities? How are we showing love to those that are being affected by the pandemic pivot through job loss, through divorce, through all of these different things that are happening in our world? Are you going to be the one to support? Because we women, we are at the helm of the pandemic. Why is that? Not only because we rock and rule the world, but there are other reasons why we are at the helm of the pandemic. Because, as I mentioned, we hold the workforce. We are the shakers, we are the movers, we're the change agents, we are the destiny carriers, the glory carriers, we are the hope carriers. I am that woman. As of October 2020, 6.8 million women are unemployed. This is a drastic change for us change agents and destiny carriers and women that are not employed any longer. Just a change of that, even from last year, there was 2.6 million. What a drastic change. Are we going to think just only about the numbers? Or are we going to put faces to those numbers? Are you that woman? Is your neighbor that woman? Who are these people? Research is showing that women are likely to lose jobs during layoff. There's a lot of reasons for that. We should be thinking about those reasons. We should be galvanizing our support. We should be dedicated to showing love and support. How are we going to pivot through this? How will we be transformed? How am I going to transform? How am I going to recover? There is so much going on. Why are there layoffs and shifts? Because women are holding these places in the workforce, and when the gavel falls, it sometimes impacts us. Now what? Now who? Now why? There is so much going on now. And this pandemic is not affecting each of us the same. I'm provoking you and myself to think about that. Why is the differences happening between how these situations impact each of us? Let's take a look at that. Here's a bit of the story. Education, we all have it. We all have some of it, either informal or non-formal, but that doesn't make the big difference in terms of how you will be impacted, how I will be impacted during this pandemic. Education alone is not enough. We need more support. We need more love. We need more care. We need each other during this time because our labor force is being transformed because of individuals getting those notices of being laid off, job loss, economic injustices, all of the kinds of things that happen during a shift in a pandemic. The pandemic has shifted us and we have shifted in the pandemic. I'm speaking to the ones that have no choices in this. Leadership, women in leadership. More than half of management occupations are held by women in 2018, and there's been a significant increase in 2020. Women held 51.8% of professional and related jobs. Now what? How does that impact all of us as we continue to negotiate our spaces in our community, in our world, in our work marketplace? Unemployment continues. We are pivoting. We are trying to pivot. We are trying to transform, each of us. Are you that woman? Am I that woman? Am I that person? Who is your person? Who is being impacted? Who is saddened today about those kinds of things? We are all being faced with choices now. Women loss is heavy concentrated. I am that woman. Education and health services is experiencing a significant loss due to our pandemic, job loss, budget conditions, budget restraints, all the shift in terms of what we can offer each other and what our institutions can offer us. Retail trade is being hit, heavy losses in that. I have friends who have lost their jobs, lost their future, retiring early, forced out. Who are these women? Will we put faces to these names of the 6.2 million people that are without jobs now? Or will we continue to look at just the numbers? What is happening? Leisure and hospitality, what we all love in our 2020 vision, right? This great shift of who we are and what we're doing. Well, these women are losing their jobs. They are unemployed. Who are these women? Where are they? Where are their faces? Will we support them? Will we lend our listening ear? Will we navigate it? We need to pivot. We're going this way and that way, some by choices, some by mandate. It is time for us to rethink what we need to do. It's time for me to think about my next step and transformation and transitioning to the next step as one that has been impacted by the shift and what we're all experiencing. We know that when these things happen, they don't all impact each other the same. Unemployment is at an all-time high. This is a note of persons that are over the age of 20, and the highest pocket of persons being impacted, I am that woman. 15% of the Asian women, 14% for Black women, white women, 10.3%. These are the faces of the women. I just don't want you to forget that these numbers have faces. We are pivoting, we are transitioning, we are being transformed as I speak. We need to make choices. I need to make choices. What are the next steps to the tiers? Please don't forget the faces of the women. We are all pivoting through voluntary or mandatory choices at this time. We are pivoting. What is our next step? Please be a support to your neighbor. Who is that woman? Are you that woman? I am that woman. I, Felisa Joy, am pivoting. I am forced to pivot in this season. Thank you.
Well done, Felisa. Well done. I am inspired.
Thank you very much. Wonderful job. Okay, our next presenter is Laura Rudolph. Laura works for Mortenson Construction. She is a senior MEP project manager leading mechanical and electrical heavy projects. She enjoys leveraging the strengths of each team member to solve the most complex technical challenges. She is an advocate for women in construction and an avid supporter of the Autism Society of Southeast Wisconsin and Best Buddies. She is a wife and mom of 2 amazing children.
All right, so we've heard a lot about pivoting and adjusting to change. And when I thought about that for this presentation, that's what I focused on. I thought a lot about needing to have this solid center point from which we can pivot effectively. And this very simple thing came up. So what does it mean to have center? It means to be rooted in who we are physically, mentally, and spiritually. It means I've taken care of my needs effectively so that I can help others. And it also means that I have room for change, because change is going to come and we are going to be faced with that. So being virtual, it's a little bit hard to connect with you all. But I do want to share some of my 2020 journey with you, as I feel it relates very well to how finding center for me really helped me through this change that's really been a constant in 2020. So in February of this year, pre-pandemic, one morning when I was driving into work, it all kind of came undone. It wasn't one thing or two things, but sort of all the things. My body and mind basically decided no more. I probably would have kept pushing. I was coming off a year that was jam-packed, and I was just expecting there to be more time, more space. But it didn't just happen. I plowed through that first month and a half, ignoring all of the, what I now know were warning signs. So I went home that February day, and I took time to let my body and mind come to rest. I paused for several days so that I could recenter myself. I journaled a lot. I started exercising again, and I spent time outside. I started to lean into my support system, a few of which I know are listening today, so thank you. I reached out for help. I knew I needed a healthy sort of outside perspective, and that was really beneficial. So I had this really good set of techniques that I sort of built up, which allowed me to, over the next couple days, start to implement those and feel really good about where I was at. And then after a couple of weeks, I was feeling confident that I was going to be able to maintain this center that I had found. And that was all pre-March. So little did I know that, March was coming. And my 2020 started to look something like this. February was certainly a low point. But as I started to focus on this idea of being centered and trying to stay there and using those techniques, I found I was able to quickly adjust and pivot to everything that was coming at me. So an example of this is obviously in March, many of us experienced, bringing all these ideas under one roof. So, your place of work, your place of teaching, being a parent, living 24/7, all of that happening under one roof. It was a choice that we had to pivot around. But I stayed focused on those ideas and those techniques that I had learned in February. And my husband and I were able to manage our time to a scale we hadn't really needed to before, but it was successful. And through that, I cherished all of those small moments and the few moments of quiet. Another example is my son has a large support team. And earlier this year, that equilibrium that we keep around him started to shift with one of these entities wanting to pull more time away to help with his support. But kind of from the perspective that I was in, I started to recognize that as a threat and move to protect this family time that we had come to enjoy and cherish through that kind of February, March lessons learned. Another example, obviously, with everything that's happened this year, lots of different changes through work with the pandemic. It's not easy to start a new project in the onset of a pandemic. So there was a lot of opportunities to adjust there, but I think, given everything that I had gone through to that point, in the past, I would have been kind of easily thrown off, or it would have taken me a while. I was able to kind of get to, the different, plan options much more smoothly and quickly. So 2020 was really trying to tell me something, and the message that I heard was slow down, find your center. The process of doing that has really enabled me to take everything that 2020 has thrown at me and maintain my center. And I feel like it's kind of summed up here in this quote. Peace does not mean to be in a place where there is no chaos, trouble, or hard realities to deal with. It means to be in the midst of all these things and still remain mentally, emotionally, and physically centered. So I've been more intentional about my time this year and how I'm spending it, whether that's with family, friends, a good book, or a walk. And as I created my Christmas card just a week ago, I realized that despite canceled vacations, I still have a lot of good photos and memories that I wanted to share this year. So I'm thankful for 2020. It's taught me a lot about myself and what I need to do to stay in this idea of center. 2020 has certainly proved what a vital skill it is to remain center, even through all the tough times. So with that, I encourage each of you to kind of take a moment and sort of evaluate, where you're at, and do anything that's necessary to try to find that center for yourself. Thank you.
Great job, Laura.
Well done, Laura. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Excellent perspective. Our next presenter is Starla Thompson. Starla is an accomplished educator, speaker, dancer, and inspirational leader. She comes from the Forest County Potawatomi and Santa Ynez Chumash nations. Starla derives strength as a Native American woman, mother, advocate, and community leader from her traditional values. She has spent most of her adult life serving communities through leadership development, Native American cultural awareness, and education. She created this tribal leadership development program, a nationally recognized personal development and professional succession plan. She has collaborated with businesses and government entities to build education pipelines serving tribal communities and their members from birth to career. She shares her story, passion, and skills to effectuate positive change, provide a voice, and expand justice for vulnerable populations. She carries the resilience and perseverance of her ancestors forward through education and art. She serves on boards in Milwaukee and Chicago on issues of importance to her, such as murdered and missing Indigenous women, Native language preservation, American Indian elderly, women's equity, and Native American culture and art.
Uju wabno gija kwe knows one gade day nadodam Stone Lake Nindonjaba Elsie Johnson Nokomis Bodwad Mi Kwe and Dao. Good evening, my name is Starla Thompson. My spirit name is Wabano Gija Kwe. It translates to the first light that breaks the night woman. I come from the Otter clan of the Forest County Potawatomi Nation here in Wisconsin. So I offered you a traditional greeting as a part of the oral tradition. The oral tradition is central to the history and preservation of Native American culture. Therefore, it's important for me to convey myself in that manner. The oral tradition is living, breathing, and dynamic. That tradition tells us that we are the Anishinaabe, or original people from the Great Lakes region, and we did not migrate here over a land bridge. This photo depicts the Three Fires Confederacy. Potawatomi were part of a larger group of individuals that included the Ottawa and Ojibwe brothers. We are the youngest of the three brothers. We are keeper of the fire, or Bodwe Watami. For us, the flame represents life, is a living spirit, and should be honored and respected. This is my grandmother, Elsie Johnson. She is an Indian boarding school survivor. The boarding schools in this nation were a concerted effort by the military to assimilate Indians. All forms of abuse were rampant in these schools. In fact, they had cemeteries on site because many of the children died there, never returning home to their families. My grandmother survived this experience and went on to have 5 daughters. This is my mother, Karen. She was born in 1959 to her people in Wisconsin. As a baby, she contracted tuberculosis and was put in a sanatorium. From there, she was stolen and removed to Nevada, completely severing her tie to her people here in Wisconsin. My mother was raised with severe abuse throughout her childhood. At 18, my mother found her father lived in Chicago, and she made her way there with my father when she was pregnant with me. She was looking to escape the abuse she had endured in her childhood and reconnect to the relatives in the Great Lakes area. Upon finding her family, she learned her mother, Elsie, my grandmother, had died when she was a young girl from the heartbreak of losing her. This is the only picture I have of myself as a baby and my biological father, Robert. He was from the Santa Ynez Chumash Nation in California. My parents met as teenagers in Nevada. And soon after this picture was taken, he had abandoned me and my mother. This left us homeless in Chicago, where what my mother describes to be a very scary city without family, friends, or resources. My mother struggled very severely in the first 7 years of my life with trauma, identity, motherhood, and substance abuse. When I was 7 years old, she was in an accident and expected to die from her injuries. She tells me she had a dream in which I called to her and told her I needed her to stay with me here. She awoke from that dream with a resolve to live. For the first time, she realized she had purpose beyond the abuse she survived. As the eldest of her children, I felt it was my responsibility to reconnect those ties that had been severed for her and our family. As I sat with my relatives and immersed myself in our culture, language, and ceremonies, it became clear a way existed through our culture and through our traditional lifestyle. As a result of my mother being stolen, our family was being denied membership into our tribe. After all the women in our family had endured, the fire within me was ignited to prove our lineage and claim our birthright. I spent over 20 years researching and providing documentation on our family, and as a result, we were acknowledged as rightful tribal members. I'm so grateful I was raised by strong Indigenous women who not only survived, but taught me to thrive. These are my children, all boys. But perhaps this is one way for the women in our family to pass the torch to the men. Jeremiah, Joshua, Joah, and Benjamin, they all have spirit names. All of them have attended the Indian Community School here in Franklin, Wisconsin for Native American children, and all have been raised with our traditional values and culture. Joah and Benjamin's first language was Ojibwe, the tribe their father belonged to. Around the time this picture was taken, Ben and Joah's father abandoned the family. He too was struggling with his trauma and fatherhood. Although this may seem extreme, this level of trauma is common in Native families and is as a result of centuries of federal policies aimed at our genocide. I would not allow the cycle of trauma to perpetuate. It would stop with my children. I wanted to endure. We would determine our own future. And for me, that answer was through education. Immediately, I enrolled in the University of Wisconsin's business school. During those years, we survived on less than $20,000 a year, yet those were some of the happiest years of our lives. Everything was substance. We were a close-knit family focused on culture and traditional ways of resiliency. While I was finishing my degree, I received devastating news one day. My stepfather, the only father I had known, was killed instantly in an accident. Ever since I met Patrick, or he entered into my life, he was my rock. He was a father figure to my boys in the absence of their father. He was so much to me and many others. I did end up graduating with honors, and I'm a first-generation graduate for my family. After graduating, I'd created the Tribal Leadership Development Program, a personal development and professional succession plan in support of tribal sovereignty and self-determination, engaging tribal members in our businesses, enhancing their skills, and providing tailored career paths so they could step into leadership positions. We received recognition across the nation and in Indian country for our success. My life mission statement is to use my story, passion, and skills to effectuate positive change, expand justice, and provide a voice for vulnerable populations. With that, some causes I dedicate my time to are the murdered and missing Indigenous women, Native language and art preservation, elders, recidivism. I'm a Native American foster parent, and of course, women's equity. A huge part of my healing has to do with the jingle dress. The story of the jingle dress tells about a father whose daughter became ill. She was not expected to recover. And he had a dream in which the details of the dress and the dance were provided to him. When he awoke, he followed the instructions precisely and his daughter recovered fully. This dance is known as the healing dance and is only performed by women for the healing of all of our people. This little jingle dress dancer here is Aaliyah. She was abandoned by her mother when she was a baby. My uncle adopted her the same same uncle that gave all me and my children our spirit names and laid to rest my non-native father in a traditional ceremony. Family is not just important to us, it is life and extends beyond linear roles and responsibilities. I can't hear it. I don't know if anyone else can.
No.
Can you turn your volume up?
I hope I have captured how strong, resilient people in my family have pivoted and provided a way for me to be here today and share a story with you. 7 generations is a Native American philosophy that teaches everything we do results in a sustainable future 7 generations into the future. And I can't think of a better reason to pivot. Thank you very much. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Starla, thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Wonderful, very inspiring story.
Wow.
Our next presenter is Lauren Goff. Lauren is an environmental scientist and environmental service group leader, nearing 20 years of environmental experience and specific profession experience in environmental site assessments for brownfield redevelopment and real estate transactional due diligence. She is an experienced and successful grant proposal writer and funding facilitator. Lauren has managed hundreds of due diligence phase 1 and phase 2 ESAs for all types of real property, servicing a diverse client base, including developers, lenders, real estate investors, legal professionals, economic development institutions, and landowners nationwide. Lauren specializes in connecting communities with brownfield funding to redevelop environmentally inhibited real estate assets. Lauren has assisted communities in obtaining millions in brownfield funding, jump-starting economic development opportunities at blighted properties. Lauren is also responsible for managing a team of highly skilled, elite environmental professionals and specialists, assuring on-time deliverables that meet appropriate ASTM and non-ASTM scope requirements. In addition to transactional due diligence, Lauren's team specializes in National Environmental Protection Act and National Historic Preservation Act review for federal undertaking in the telecommunications space, as well as geotechnical engineering investigations to assure structural sound project design.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Admittedly, my heart is just raw at the moment. I want to thank all of our presenters, Wisconsin Crew, Milwaukee Women's Fund, and Women in Design. Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually a transplant to Sauk City, Wisconsin, via Cincinnati. I grew up in Akron, Ohio, home of LeBron. And I'm enthusiastic to share with you my authentic viewpoint. I have the pleasure of helping lead a great company of employee owners. For those of you who are familiar with the Wisconsin Dells, you might recognize Raja there in the southeast corner. We specialize in a number of architecture and engineering disciplines, but I'll talk with you a little bit about aquatic engineering, telecommunications, and some of the other ways that we've pivoted this year, as well as some of my own story. Again, we're headquartered in Sauk City, Wisconsin, have strategic locations across the nation. We plan to open our downtown Madison office this year in spring. While that office is open, we have had to pivot and are not hosting our grand opening until a time in the future. One of the things that attracted me to Ramaker and Associates and to Wisconsin to work for Ramaker were our mission and value statements, core of which include enhancing the lives of our clients and employee owners, treating others as we wish to be treated, and approaching challenges from a broad perspective. You know, as I sat today, like many others, I wondered, okay, what is it to pivot, right? I thought of the engineering aspects. I thought of LeBron. I thought of basketball. As a former novice salsa dancer myself, I've thought of dance. I thought of pivoting from hospitality to multi-tenant residential. On March 13th, Friday the 13th, I knew I was sick. Come Monday the 16th, I still knew I was sick, but the doctor had given me a note to return to work. I called my boss, said, hey, I'm still coughing. He said, stay home. We told our employee owners, if you feel more comfortable working from home, please do. By that Tuesday, the message changed. We recommend that you work from home. By Wednesday, At 10 a.m., our offices were closed. My life went from enjoying my little scooter buddy, zipping around town, to a beautiful office that I love, to shifting to a work from home space, creating a pitching course in my backyard. I learned to garden, grew a lot of great things, and we adopted a new senior citizen to our household, Teddy, who's fit in quite nicely. But from there, you know, we saw our employee owners continue to pivot. We saw full-time employee owners becoming part-time teachers. It was really necessary that we put our money where our mouth was and treat each other as we wish to be treated, trusting that people were going to work well from home. We also realized that we had some room to grow. It was time to focus on diversity, equality, and inclusion. We formulated a committee. We realized that we have plenty of work to do. One COVID silver lining we recognized, however, as we took a deep data dive into our diversity, equity, and inclusion, was that now in a remote work environment, we could expand our geographic footprint and look for candidates in other areas of the country. Typically, we work on a number of water parks per year. I mentioned Raja at the Wisconsin Dells. This is in Grand Prairie, Texas. This facility has a retractable roof, retractable walls, multiple concession stands, 6 slides, a flow rider. But water parks were closed. What were we to do? Students were at home studying, so we saw a pivot from these intense water park projects to looking at local schools who now had the time and space to do renovation projects. This is an area view of South Prairie School District where they are building a new pool. We're also seeing projects from the commercial sector. Dolphin Swim Club took a moment during COVID to recognize that by improving their facilities during this time, they could grow their swim school. So this is a rendering of our client's project set to break ground any day now. So we also saw a large pivot from multiple hotel projects each year, right? So Ramaker worked on a lot of hospitality projects, generally from year to year, but folks were no longer staying in hotels. Our employees out in the field have their essential worker cards from the FCC. We're continuing their work, but what were we to do? No hotel projects were coming online. Thankfully, that's changed in the last few weeks. We have seen a hotel project come online, but in the interim, we pivoted to multi-tenant residential. And so this project in Middleton, Wisconsin has broken ground. I think nearly every department in our company touched this project in one way or another, from architecture, interiors to environmental and other. On the telecommunications side, where I'm spending a lot more of my time these days than in brownfield development, we saw a big need, right, to keep Americans connected, both for emergency response, but also in terms of our remote work environments and remote schooling environments. The FCC issued the Keep Americans Connected project, which prevented carriers from cutting off cell service for folks that couldn't pay for it. And on a typical telecommunications project, my team is not only involved in looking at environmental matters you might be familiar with, wetlands, endangered species, but we're also working on Section 106, which is important to historic preservation, both from the state historic preservation offices, but also the tribal historic preservation offices. What if someone were wanting to build a cell phone tower on a Native American burial ground site, an area where there were artifacts? Well, herein lies the challenge, folks. So we saw greater and more dense cases of COVID-19 in tribal communities than we even saw in downtown Manhattan. Our reviews had to pause while we allowed communities to work through this, something incredibly important. Also this year, we saw a shift from the DNC in Milwaukee to being this huge event where telecommunications were absolutely necessary to keep folks connected. That event looked different, but still the telecom build out in that area is at least in place so we can see technology advance. So a lot of strange things happening in 2021. In closing, you know, we've seen plenty of examples of personal and professional pivots. I just want to make sure to say that I'm grateful for our ability to connect as humans through this process. We're now being invited into each other's homes virtually, which we didn't see before, a new layer of authentic connection. So as we seek for COVID silver linings to change and pivot our view shed, my hope is that we'll continue to see increased instances of authentic connection across the board. Thank you guys so much for having me. This format is a little different and new to me. Thank you so much for the challenge, and to all the presenters. It's been really great.
Wonderful job. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Fantastic. Okay, on to our next speaker, Marilyn Herzberg. Marilyn is the president of Greywolf Partners and NAI Greywolf in Milwaukee. Greywolf is a full-service real estate company providing brokerage, asset, and property management and development services for all product types, including office, retail, industrial, multifamily, and senior housing. Marilyn has over 30 years of experience in commercial real estate and oversees the activities of marketing, brokerage, developing, leasing, engineering, and management for Greywolf Partners. Marilyn is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison and holds the industry designations of CPM and CCIM.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. This is my first kick at the can in doing this type of presentation, and I've really enjoyed all of the others. So I'm going to give you my viewpoint, not only as the employee and how we've had to pivot, but also as the employer. I think we would all agree at this point that the only thing that's constant is change. We've all been forced to pivot, whether consciously or not. When I think about pivoting, I think in terms of a verb, of pivoting and a turning point, which is probably how many of you think about pivoting as well. I believe that we'll look back on 2020 as a turning point in many different ways. When I start to think of pivoting, I think of people. Our current need to pivot is affecting people. Many of us have found ourselves in a constant state of change over most of this year. Just when we thought we had something figured out, everything seemed to change. There were restrictions, social distancing, masks, stores closing. All things seemed to change constantly. Plans were canceled, events were delayed, groups were minimized, stores and restaurants closed, supplies were limited. The immediate need to pivot was so unnatural for most people, and yet it caused significant hardship for some. We made the call to our staff in March. As of tomorrow, everything is different. The constant changes in the data, the cases, the deaths, the testing, it was overwhelming. The media and the noise about what was happening was a constant drone, yet we seemed drawn to the television, to the news, to our phones, constantly checking on the status of the situation. Having been thrown into uncharted waters, our direction uncertain. I think about interaction. Finding ourselves at home 24/7, we had to adjust to a new way of interacting with others, our families, and our coworkers, respecting space within our homes and finding new ways to interact with our fellow employees. Do you remember life before Zoom? But there was an instant recognition for the need and the desire to collaborate. There was no roadmap or guide to steer individuals or corporations through this situation. And the ability to collaborate with others and share thoughts and ideas not only helped navigate the situation, but bring an element of calm to what seemed to be a frenzy. Instantly, we were relying on technology to drive our interactions. Moving our business to a remote interaction was challenging. Do you remember the sense of relief that you felt the first time that you had everyone from your office on a Zoom call to actually be able to see their faces and interact again? There's new technology emerging all the time. What's Parlor? Pivot has meant changing our way of thinking about how we do our jobs. Working from home has brought a new dimension to our business for many of us. The question remains, how will it affect our workplaces going forward? How much space will we need? Are we working at home? What is going to happen post-pandemic? Working virtually requires commitment from both the employer and the employee that there will be trust, dedication, open communication, and a focus on organization for both of us to be successful in this virtual world. Do you find yourself suddenly left out of the conversation because you're working remotely? While many of us were used to working side by side with others on our teams, we've been forced apart, and we've had to seek ways to maintain that connection and communication that's so critical to our jobs and to who we are personally. Have you found new ways to connect? Have you been able to find a place where you can sit and have a cup of coffee? Or maybe you're finding friends and coworkers and taking a walk. To optimize our at-home situations, there needs to be a tremendous amount of flexibility. For many, this was a new trend that was just coming into focus and now is thrust upon us and upon employers across the board. There was flexibility in both family and employees. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation, which speaks to everyone's need to pivot. Situations vary. Unforeseen challenges emerged. What works for some does not work for all. The ability to handle change is not equal. The need to pivot increases. We must all be willing to pivot. To survive this new and puzzling situation thrust upon us, we have to find a way to connect with others, perhaps differently than before. For many of us, to be successful requires that we function as a unit, or at the very least, interact frequently with others. But how? We all had to find a new way to do things, and many of us miss that constant interaction that we participated in so often. For some, this has been a devastating time, and they can't pivot. Some were forced into isolation to protect or maintain their physical health. They had to adjust to a world without interaction. It was very difficult for many people. Time heals all wounds, they say, but it also can ruin a business if there's no time that includes patrons. Pandemic fatigue is a real thing. People will only follow rules to a point before they challenge to return to the situations that make them more comfortable. Human interaction is necessary. We learn from it, we thrive on it, and we live for it. Many of us have found a new appreciation for the outdoors. Have you found a new way to take advantage of the world around you? Perhaps the people and places in your lives have changed. We found a new appreciation for others. With this change, we found time in our day that we didn't seem to have before, along with a new appreciation for others and their situations and circumstances has heightened our awareness and our compassion for others. Sometimes we've had to find an escape from those around us within our homes. We have to be able to pivot, but also you need to find a way to settle in and appreciate those around you. Enjoy nature, revel in the quiet times when you have them. Be creative, be kind, be compassionate, and be willing to pivot. Take a walk, call a family member, or maybe reconnect with someone you haven't talked to in a very long time. Read a book, actually disconnect. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to talk with you today. Again, this is a very new format for me, but it's been fun to actually take some quiet time myself and think about how I've had to pivot. Thanks.
Thank you, Marilyn. Good job. Wonderful. Woo! Okay, last but certainly not least, we have Annette Jacobson. Annette graduated with a degree in statistics from the University of Wisconsin. She had a successful career in informational systems. This was followed by becoming both a registered yoga teacher and a certified yoga therapist. She also paints and sells her work. She currently has her own business, Women Rocking the World, and enjoys being curious, exploring consciousness, spirituality, and how the universe works. Annette has requested that if possible, you make the presentation screen larger as she ends our presentations on a more positive note.
Thanks, Alyssa. I'm going to read you a fairy tale. It's called Princess Possibility Pivots in the Kingdom of What If. Once upon a time, beyond time and space, there was a being called Princess Possibility. She was excited to begin her adventure on planet Earth in the kingdom of what if. Her assignment? It was to be a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth, to be the gift of herself. Now, the kingdom of what if was like the rest of the universe. It was expansive, creative, quantum. It was fractal. It was a place to play and have fun, to create and dance. It was filled with love and possibility and flow. It was amazing. But not long after arriving, she had an experience with great challenge. In surviving and overcoming the great challenge, she forgot who she was and became Princess, I must be perfect to be safe. And she forgot she was in the kingdom of what if. She lived instead in a different place. She lived in the land of be safe, don't make a mistake, be good, don't break the rules, make others happy and meet their expectations. And it was surrounded by the sea of life is serious. Oh my, she was in big trouble. And then around her were teachers that told her and everyone else, work, push, try harder, put in the hours. And she did what they said. But she became exhausted. It wasn't fun. It was hard. It wasn't flowing. It was pushing. And she knew something wasn't right. In her exhaustion and questioning, she woke up one morning pivoting. Happiness was shining into her life. She realized it was okay to be happy, that she deserved to be happy. She pirouetted with happiness, realizing it was an integral part of experiencing love, fulfillment, generosity, and wholeness. In the light of happiness, though, she saw she was still spending lots of energy and effort keeping the door shut on the secret of her great challenge. The exhaustion and effort of pushing on that door was a great contrast to the happiness shining on her. So she pivoted again. She realized it wasn't her job to keep the secret locked up. In letting the door open, the energy and effort she had spent on keeping the door shut came back to her and filled her up. She had her own power, and she had energy to live her life. Her life changed, and then soon after that, 2020, the year of perfect vision, happened. Pandemic, polarity, racial inequality, it was all so much. It became the visible, surreal reality throughout the land. Ugh. It became so ridiculous. Some people even said, the earth is flat. No, it's square. Well, it's triangular. And then the boy from the emperor's new clothes popped in to be the only truth teller. And he said, can't you see? The earth is round, everyone. It was all so confusing, so crazy. The boy said, well, now what? And the princess answered, silly, it's not the kingdom of now what? It's the kingdom of what if? And she began to remember. Despite all the confusion, she was remembering. I'm a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth. In fact, we're all pieces of the puzzle of heaven on earth. She was excited, but what did that really mean? And what difference did it make? Well, she began to remember more. She remembered that she was smart and capable and born to create, and that living in expansion and flow was her natural state. She remembered what other wise people had said. like Einstein, Barbara Marx Hubbard, other scientists, and even yogis and spiritual teachers. To solve a problem requires a different way to think than what caused the problem. So she decided to consider the problem of polarity, and she pivoted again. She asked with great curiosity, what does everyone want? Aha, everyone wants to feel full. But how? Well, some thought if I'm rich, I'll feel full. Others thought if I'm CEO of a big company, I'll feel full. Or if I get an award, if I'm the best mom, if I get a fast car, if I have lots of power, I'll feel full. Well, she continued with her pivot as she considered all these different paths. But none of these were the answer. She knew that. But I remember as Princess Possibility, I'm a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth. If I'm all of who I'm here to be, I will feel full and filled. And you know, the same is true for everyone else. And in her pivot, the sea of life is Sirius parted and drained away, and the kingdom of what if returned. Because who can be all of who they're here to be in the land of don't make a mistake, make others happy, and be sure to be safe? No one. But in the kingdom of what if, all things are possible. And so Princess Possibility considered with great thought and heart, what is beyond the pandemic, beyond fixing what isn't working? What is even greater than equity, way past polarity? What's beyond it all? What's beyond the curtain? And she imagined, along with others, an amazing beyond. Let's see, an incredible vaccine, 100% environmental sustainability. And what about traveling to Mars? We can imagine so much, but she still felt limited. She knew there was something that was even beyond imagination. And there it was, a gift from the universe that was more, other, beyond what anyone could imagine. And she could only receive it if she didn't push and hold on to what her own ideas were too tightly. Princess Possibility pivoted to make room to receive, and instead of the end, it was a never-ending beginning.
Yay!
That was great.
So wonderful.
Yay.
Love that, Annette.
Woo.
So
So
awesome.
creative. Very well done.
Oh, amazing.
Thank you to all of our presenters for sharing your stories and for such fabulous presentations. We're going to conclude our event with a little bit more networking. We did run a little bit long. So of course, if you have to sign off, feel free to do so at this point. If not, stay on and we will have a few more networking breakout rooms before we conclude.
Melissa, can I just chime in real quick? This is Ellie again, sorry. First, I want to make sure that I send a big thank you out to Women in Design's continuing sponsors, which are Erdman, Mandel Group, HGA, Quorum, and Growth Design Group. And I also want to please direct you all again to our website if you're interested in becoming a sponsor and continuing for us to provide this wonderful programming. Thanks to Patti and Laura, the Women in Design invited speakers. And we hope to see you again at another Women in Design event. Thank you so much, everyone. That was fantastic.
Thank you.